Greetings to one and all. As all of you have seen my earlier video, which explained to you about what exactly is a journal, how would you make the columns, or rather, how would you ask your writer to be drawing the columns. I've given you a detailed description as to how to go about it. In today's video, we would be going about to see how the entries are supposed to be made in the journal format that is being drawn by your writer. For those who have not seen my earlier video, go through the video by clicking on the link given to you in the description box. So let's begin with how do we go about making the entries in a journal after the drawing is completed. As you already know, that a journal is a rough book of accounts which has the entire recording of every transaction irrespective of its type. So it is the prime book of accounts in which we do all the entries of every transaction date-wise. Now, as we've already discussed and you are aware that a journal has got the format as shown on the screen, where we have the first column from the left to right as date, followed by particulars, followed by ledger folio, then the debit amount and the credit amount. Now these are the columns that we have already discussed and you're all aware about. In today's video, we would go about as to how are we supposed to make entries in the given format. Coming to the first column, that's the date column. Now please do remember that whenever we are making entries, now we are going to do it on every line. So every journal entry that we begin with would be horizontally written, that is on every line. How are you going to go about doing the entries? So the first column, that is from the left, is the date column. So obviously the date column would be having the day, the month and the year being recorded. So you could write that for the transaction on the very first line of your journal. The next column is the column for particulars, which is the main column where we do all the entries of a particular transaction. That's the most important column. So please do remember the line on which you've already written the date, we continue on the same line in the particulars column. So the first thing that we write on the very first line is the account that's going to be debited. So when we write the name of the account, it is, let's take an example, started business with cash rupees 10,000. Let's just put this or imagine this. How are we going to go about doing the entry for this particular transaction? Now, the very first thing that's going to be debited has to be on the first line. So according to the given example, cash is going to be debited and we would be writing in the particulars column and going to be debited. The name of the account is written followed by the word DR representing that that particular account is being debited. So our example, cash account is being debited. So we would be writing on that first line after the date in the date column, cash account followed by DR at the edge of the particulars column. Continuing with the column of particulars, on the next line we would be having the account name which is going to be credited. So according to our example, capital is going to be credited. So in the particulars column, in the second line, we would be writing the word TO2. 2 would be written on the second line, followed by the name of the account that's going to be credited. Now, according to the example, capital is the account which is going to be credited. So we write capital followed by again the abbreviation of account, that is A/C. Now in all my coming videos, I would not be giving all these details related to how are you going to go about writing each and everything specifically. We would be discussing in the coming videos only about the journal, how are we going to go about it. So whichever account is going to be credited, we are supposed to precede it with the word TO2 followed by the name of the account, that is in our example capital, followed by A/C. Now here at the edge of that particular column, that's of the particulars column, we will not write any word because we have written TO2. So the minute we say 2, that means it is the credit thing, whatever is the account that's going to be credited. We haven't completed the particulars column. So the first line of our particulars had whatever is the name of the account that's going to be debited. The second line had whatever is going to be credited. And now in the third line we would be having the narration. Narration is nothing but an explanation of whatever is going to be the transaction, which would be useful for any person who is referring to our journal entry few days after the transaction is over. So it is a short description as to what exactly was the transaction due to which we have made this particular journal entry. So these are generally in a person's own words so that he or she could understand it in future when he is referring to that particular journal entry. Now in case you are writing a journal, then we would proceed to the next column and let's see what's there in the next column. The next column is the ledger folio column. Folio means a page number. Now please do remember, as I had already explained to you in my very first video, where we did see that journal is nothing but a rough book of accounts, and it is, I did quote there an example that it is just like a book which you carry to your college or school where you have all the subjects notes written into it. But when you go back home, you would transfer all those notes into a separate book. So now the same example, if we continue, this journal further is going to be transferred to individual books which we call as ledgers. Now on which book of the ledger are we going to transfer, which page of the ledger are we going to transfer this particular, specify the ledger number. Yes, coming to the last two columns, how do we go about it? Now please do remember that the first line of our journal entry had in the date column the date being mentioned, in the particulars column whatever is going to be debited, and the ledger folio in case the problem had a ledger folio being mentioned in the problem. But in case there was no journal, no ledger folio being mentioned in the problem, it would have been empty. But on the very first line, we would be writing in the debit amount column the amount of the debited accounts amount. So in our example, suppose the business was started with 10,000 rupees, we would be mentioning 10,000 in the debit column. And on the very first line, the credit amount is entry that is being done by you. Here is one journal complete. So let's summarize what we saw in today's video. How does a transaction travel? So a transaction basically from the source of the documents, it goes into the transactions would go into a journal. How would it go into the journal? It would first be the two accounts that are going to be debited and credited would be ascertained. Then depending on the type, we would classify it, and after the classification, we would be seeing what are the two effects that would be there, which account would be debited and which account would be credited, and then we begin with the journal entry. So I hope all of you did understand whatever is the journal entries explanation given to you in this particular video. Any doubts, do comment in this video for this particular video. You can always feel free to ask me your doubts, and please do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. So see you soon in the coming videos, where we would be coming up with many more examples as to how to go about doing your journal entries. Thank you for watching, and see you soon. Do not forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe. Thank you.